Okay, Christina here to listen to some music, and today's music selection is Adventures in a Yorkshire Landscape by BE BOP Deluxe. I have no idea who this group is, except that they were around in the mid-70s, and they're from Yorkshire, and that's all I know. But I am very intrigued to find out what these adventures are and what these landscapes might be depicted as through this music. Just from the art on the cover here, just from the image of the audio version I'm going to be listening to here, it looks kind of futuristic, like there's a robot there, but this is in the mid-70s, so I don't think it would be like 80s pop style. I don't know. That's sort of my best guess for now. Okay, but what else are we going to be doing with this music? Not just learning about this band, but also I am a professional classically trained musician, instrumentalist, vocalist, composer, and professor. So we talk about all the different aspects of this music, how it's composed, all the different instruments that were used within it, and how it makes us feel. Why do we like it? Or why maybe do we not like it? So, no more delay. Let's get started in this little adventure. Let's listen. Okay, let's go.
Bridges and rivers, buildings pulled down. Time spent in places, footsteps it found. Heroes in ballrooms lie smashed on the ground, walking with November mist. Pathways and windows, movies and maids. Old ladies who soon pass away, paintings and sounds that are done in a day. Around and moving, fires on spires and shivers of black, fields on horizons with pylons to crack. To apply the statistics and read the tea leaves, turn those no limits for days and justice.
Okay, we might be heading into a guitar solo. I'll back it up and hear the beginning of it again. Well, yeah, I had no idea what kind of music this was going to be. And now hearing it, it is a little futuristic in the fact that there's a lot of jazz that's intertwined in this. At first I thought maybe it was kind of bluesy. There might be a little bit of that, but I'm hearing jazz chords like the seventh chords in the arpeggios, and then at the same time there's sort of a hard rock vibe to it, just a little bit, like with some of the sounds of the guitars, but also the guitars are sort of more electric. It's hard to describe, but to me, as far as the mid-70s would go, it seems futuristic. And then you put on top of that the vocalist, who is also very jazzy in his delivery of the lyrics, like they're not on the beat. It's very much ad-lib. And because of that, it's very cool. I'm still sort of getting a grasp on the singer's voice though, but we'll get there. We'll get there. There are just some really cool sounds in this, and I'm liking it very much so far. All right, we'll back it up. Hear what's happening with this guitar. Could just be a transition, could be an instrumental solo, and obviously this is also a live performance, so Sounds great. All right, here we go. Okay, I'm sorry, I have to stop. I want to go back and hear the beginning of the keyboard solo. Wow, that guitar solo. That was some good stuff. Who are these guys? Or ladies? I don't know, but who are they? I mean, I just never heard of them. Just no clue what this is. And even from the opening, I mean, there's the jazzy part of it, but totally jazz instrumental solo, but also a mix of the rock with it. Just a cool, smooth vibe through the whole thing. It's incredibly enjoyable. It makes me feel calm, nostalgic. Perhaps for a landscape? So I'm also noticing just the simple drums in the background and then the bass. So yes, that guitar solo was fantastic. And what I've heard so far of the keyboard solo is also pretty good. Again, we're going to go back and listen to the beginning of that. But the bass underneath it, it has to be just right. It can't be too simple and it can't be too flashy. And I think whoever this bassist is nailing it. I think it's just right. Okay, but I do have to talk about the guitar. This is why I had to stop. So forgive me for stopping in the middle of the keyboard solo. I will go back, like I said. The guitarist, there was such ease in that playing. I loved all of the brush strokes that they chose to paint the picture. The octave work, the noodling, just all of that. And they went back to that a couple of times. Like, it just, I never once felt lost. And it was a kind of lengthy solo, but I wanted it to keep going. That's a good sign when there's a solo that happens and they reach the end and you're like, oh, that was good, but wish they could keep going. It was just really, really great. Okay, let's back up and give this keyboardist a chance. Once again, yes, yes. Applaud that soloist. Wow, okay. Yeah, keyboard was equally good. And similar enough, but different enough. Again, who is this group? I just had no idea. No idea at all that they existed. I feel foolish for that. Okay. Anyway, I mean, some of these bands that I never listened to, at least I've heard of them. This is one of those. Never heard of it. Okay. I heard more of the bass this time. It almost pulled my attention away from the soloist, but that's okay because they were really getting into playing with the thirds, like da 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 da, those little notes up there. And it was getting a little bit repetitive, but that's right when the bass stepped up and sort of got more interesting. Talk about sharing the stage and working with one another. If I were watching a video of this, I bet they would have been communicating on stage, like really giving each other cues to play off of one another. All right, the timbre of the instruments, basically the sound that they produce, the quality of the sound. It has a distortion to it, and then right there was almost an echo. So that's what I sort of meant by it sounded sort of electric, like electronic. And for some reason, I can't shake the idea of like 1980s pop sound. Maybe it's just the name. It sounds like an 80s band to me. But this is definitely a 70s band. And apparently, really, they were only together for like 5 or 6 years, like right in the middle of the 70s. What happened? I'd like to know the story. Like, what happened? How'd these people find each other? And then why did they split? Because they're fabulous. Maybe they went off to solo careers. And they could very well be successful because they're very good. Okay. But that sound, I heard it at the beginning, that timbre, sort of a distorted electronic sound, especially in the bass. I really like it. And then it really came back here as the bass came up. You noticed it more, but then it got all echoey. It's very, very cool stuff. And they're just so strongly rooted in this jazz feeling. Okay, what's going to happen for the end here? The vocal's going to come back? A duet? More solos? I have no idea. Let's back it up a little bit and see. Wow. Well, I liked the conclusion. I was right in one of my guesses. They all came back in. They all joined back on stage for the coda, the ending. And they were sort of having little conversations. And the bass was definitely more prominent, and then the keyboard, and then the guitar. That drum was almost not noticeable, but that was their job, and they did it really well because I didn't completely notice it, but I knew that they were still holding everything together, so excellent there as well. But the conversation that they had at the end was fantastic. And then the ending. You all know I'm picky about endings. It's hard to end a song sometimes. They did a fantastic job. They brought in some of those little jazz arpeggiated chords in there to end it, and then just the right slow down, rallentando, retard, to come to the close, and then a little last little ornament with the guitar, and then some upper ornaments with the keyboard sounds. Just fantastic. Okay, in fact, I want to hear that ending again. Let's just go straight there. But that's not my favorite moment, though. We're going to go back to my favorite moment after that. Oh, and it was a good one. Okay, so here's the ending. Fantastic. There's that little jazz arpeggio. Landing on that note. A little seventh. And then the little twinklies, the twinkling of the keyboard at the top. Oh, fantastic. Okay. All right. Before I go to my favorite part, I actually want to listen to the beginning because I want to hear that first time I heard that awesome sound, that electronic distorted bass sound. That's the best way I can come up to describe it. And that's where I was like, is this futuristic? Because at the time I didn't know how relaxing and nostalgic this was going to be. Not completely anyway. I had a little bit of a guess maybe from the title, but then the sound that it started with was a little rougher than that. Let's hear it. Cool sounds in the background. And even this, the timing with this is just, the keyboard solo is fantastic. The organ. Just, a cool development of the rhythm.
Bridges and rivers, buildings pulled down. Time spent in places.
This is where I was like, oh, we're jazzy. Okay.
Mirrors in ballrooms lie smashed on the ground. Walking with November mist. Pathways and windows, movies in May.
There. That sound right there. That's the first time I heard that distorted electric bass sound. I'm sorry, I don't have a better way to describe it. They're just tapping into it. So I love how they add all of these layers. It's very well balanced, but it also is kind of keeping you on the edge of your seat, wanting more to happen. So it was pretty light in the opening with the layers as they were bringing it in, but it gets heavier, doesn't it? Yes, it does. Okay. Now I'm going to go and just listen to the bass. There was one part where I first noticed the bass, again, with that sound. A little further on, let's see if I can find that. This is where I started noticing the bass in the middle of the keyboard solo. Love it. And that sound, I love that sound. Love it. It's such a good compliment to the keyboard sound. Yeah, that's so cool. I love it. And then the hush, with the drums. Yeah, so that's where I really first heard the bassist really stepping forward. The rest of the time it was there as a supporting role, but that's where I was like, oh yay, we get to hear more of that. Plus I love that sound, the actual sound of the instrument. Okay, I need to do one more thing before I go to my absolute favorite spot. I have to look at the lyrics, because then I can go to that favorite spot and really understand why it's there. It will move me even more. Okay, so there weren't that many lyrics. The vocals, it was just another solo, a solo moment. And he took his moment and then handed it off to the rest. Nelson, don't know what that is, sorry. And buildings pulled down. Time spent in places my footsteps had found. Mirrors in ballrooms lie smashed on the ground, walking with November mists. Pathways and windows and movies in May, quiet old ladies who soon pass away, paintings and songs that I'd done in a day, going round in my head. Fires on spires and chimneys of black, fields on horizons with pylons that crack. With singing sad wires of council house mystics to apply their statistics and read the tea leaves, time knows no limits for days such as these. Total nostalgia there. Was all of it completely positive? But maybe that's okay. Maybe talking about mirrors and ballrooms lie smashed on the ground, maybe that's because buildings crumble over time and then people come in and hopefully build some new buildings sometime, and it's just sort of the circle of life. So it's hard to see the old stuff go, but it eventually is going to happen. But the paintings and songs that I'd done in a day, the quiet old ladies. Time knows no limits for days such as these. Wow, yeah. If you could set that line to music, that's this song for sure. So, Adventures in This Landscape. It sounds like it's just a lifetime of memories, both good and bad, and you just kind of sum it all up together. And I think the final feeling, the final summary here is a good feeling. that nice nostalgia feeling. Okay, the soloist, the vocalist, he had an interesting voice. It was lower and mellow and smooth, and he had a wider vibrato. And again, he was not just singing on the beat, he was very much ad-lib, which completely sets up all of the jazz soloing that's about to come up later on. And of course, it's not full-on jazz here. This is not jazz. It's just jazz-infused, jazz-influenced, jazz-adjacent. And so they get to do their own version of jazz. And it is mixed in with a little bit of rock, mainly kind of some of the sounds of the instruments, the timbres there. Very interesting. Okay, are we ready for my favorite spot? I think we are. It's towards the end. Let's go there. See, the bass is playing with there, that little chord change and then back. Kind of preparing you for something new that's coming. Keyboard again. That little motif there. See? And then the guitar. Yes! Okay. Just that. That right there. You hear it in the keyboard, in the organ, and then you hear it in the guitar. So it's like the first time that you hear a direct pull from one instrument to the other. Before then, it was just the feeling or the solo spot, but those were solid motifs that were handed off. And right when that happened, I was like, ooh, that's neat. That's the first time that's happened. And that's right when that awesome whole step down in the bass line, da da dum bum 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 bum, just that right there. That's my favorite mode, you know, Mixolydian. Good stuff. And they use that little trick right there perfectly. We're going to hear it again. Here we go. Okay. Guitar solo right now, but the bass is starting to get really creative. Now the keyboard. Now listen to what the keyboard does. Listen for the guitar. There it is. And that little chord right there, I mean, the whole step. Now it went back up. Happier. For sure, happy memories. Little sparkles at the top. Nice. Love it. Okay, fantastic. Okay, so that was Adventures in a Yorkshire Landscape by BE BOP Deluxe, a band that I had never heard of before and had no idea what to expect. And now that I hear them, I love the style. And I'm just wondering what happened. Why were they together for such a short time? And how much music did they create during that time? I hope it's a lot, because this is really good. And so this was a live performance. I don't know if their studio versions would be just as good, and how true, you know, is the live performance to the studio. But this live version was so fantastic that I almost feel like it would spoil us. I don't know. It's just really good stuff. Still not sure about what the artwork is here with the robot and the chair and, you know, the symbolism here. I don't know. I don't know. But I kind of don't care because it was good music, good musicianship. I love the picture that it painted, This is a beautiful landscape. I love how all of the instruments, including the vocals with the lyrics, were featured. And they really were all featured as individual instruments. And then the little coda at the end, and it didn't bring the vocalist back in, but that's okay. You all know that I tend to hear the music first anyway, and then the lyrics, so that was very comfortable for me. They could have brought the vocalist back in at the end, but I love what they did. I love the ending. This is good. So is this going to go on my playlist? Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I'm going to listen to this a lot. And what's neat about it is that it's calm, but it doesn't like put you to sleep. But at the same time, I don't know, there's something about the quality of it that's so pleasant, but also cool, that you're left sort of feeling inspired and energized. In nostalgia, there can be some sadness, so you kind of feel some of that too, I think. But for the most part, this is good memories. Even if you have a tear sometimes for remembering things, it can still be good memories and a good experience. And I think that's what this is. All right, so thank you for joining me on this adventure through this Yorkshire landscape. It was fabulous. I do want to know more about this group and their short time together. What happened? So if you know, let me know in the comments. I will also do some other research here. If there are other songs there that I should listen to, react to, let me know. And as always, just remember that you don't have to be perfect. Just be okay. And keep listening.